Welcome back to the deep dive. We are your shortcut to knowledge, basically. We take just a mountain of community lore, forum posts, old game FAQs, guides, you name it.
All that good stuff.
Yeah, and we synthesize it all down into one, like, highly focused injection of pure, refined insight made just for you.
We're definitely skipping the textbook summaries today. We're plunging straight into the heart of it. Think of it like a forensic examination of the stuff only the really dedicated wasteland historians know about.
Deep cut stuff.
Oh yeah, this is like 16-year-old mystery material we're digging into.
Okay, but before we descend into all the static and the beeps and everything, I do need to address the mailbag. Because I saw the community forums that they were kind of blowing up.
Uh-oh.
Random user Nukenerd Lover 69, and hey, great handle, basically demanded, when are you guys going to stop messing around in the Capital Wasteland and give us that new Vegas content we actually care about?
Yes. The persistent love for the Mojave, it never ever ends, does it?
Look, we hear you. We absolutely hear you. We love the Mojave too. We respect the Mojave. And I can officially confirm for you, the listener, we're moving toward a really comprehensive New Vegas deep dive. It's coming up in the next few weeks.
We're gonna hit it hard.
Yeah, we're planning to focus heavily on some of the the philosophical differences between the factions and some genuinely fascinating cut content that just, wow.
And here's the thing, right? You cannot truly appreciate the later games, especially the genius of how Fallout uses radio, until you pay proper respects to where that system was really born.
Gotta know your roots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So today we are deep in the desolate, irradiated, frankly haunted ruins of Fallout 3's Capital Wasteland. This is where sound was truly, like, weaponized as a game mechanic.
Okay, so our mission today, synthesize the work of the OGs, the original lore hunters, the people that had figured this shit out before official guides even existed.
Right. We're diving into the community findings on these mysterious, often really misunderstood radio towers, the cryptic Morse code signals they're pumping out, and those kind of silent distress calls that just echo forever across the broken landscape.
Because these towers, they were never just scenery, were they?
Not at all. They represent this whole invisible, complex subsystem that Bethesda designed specifically to reward the most patient, the most curious explorers out there.
So we need to answer those core questions. What are these signals actually saying? How did the community even figure out the code in the first place?
And maybe most importantly for some, what's the tangible payoff? You know, the loot, the skill points, the lore bits. What do you actually get for all that hard radioactive legwork?
All right, let's get this deep dive rolling. Okay, let's unpack this whole experience. So you're wandering the wasteland, right? Post-apocalyptic DC, desolate as hell. You spot one of these massive rusted broadcast towers just looming overhead.
Yeah, they really stand out.
So you climb up, you navigate the broken metal, you find the power switch. Maybe it's broadcast tower KB5 near Greatich, or like relay tower LP8 way down south. You flipped it.
And boom! Yeah. Suddenly your Pip-Boy's radio list just floods with all these new entries.
Yeah, and they sound really military, like phonetic call signs. Alpha Lima, Echo Foxtrot, Oscar Tango. But they're not playing Three Dog, right? They're just beeping.
Yeah.
Really fast. Super repetitive.
And that right there, that's the initial kind of beautiful moment of confusion that really grabbed the early Fallout 3 community. Because for the casual player, look, it's just atmospheric noise. They ignore it, probably think, oh, cool sound design, and move on.
Sure.
But for the players with that detective mindset, it was an immediate puzzle. It was obviously Morse code, but what the hell was it saying?
Hey, you got to appreciate the dedication here. This was way before YouTube tutorials just walked you through every single secret.
Oh, absolutely. The original sleuths, they had to grab, like, spectrum analysis software. We're talking people actually using programs like Audacity? Yeah. Holding microphones right up to their TV speakers, or even ripping the game's audio files directly just to analyze the sound frequency.
That's hardcore.
It is. They'd run what's called a fast Fourier transform, an FFT, on the audio spectrum. This let them isolate the signal's specific frequency and, more importantly, translate the timing of the pulses.
Because Morse isn't just dots and dashes randomly.
Exactly. It's a precise ratio of short pulses, the dits, and long pulses, the das. They had to physically chart those timings back against like an alphanumeric code chart to figure it out.
Wow.
That level of technical commitment just for an optional hidden in-game mystery. That's why this stuff is such great community lore. It's amazing.
That really is incredible. And the most iconic one, right? The first one people really seem to pin down was radio signal Oscar Tango, OT,
Yeah.
usually found near the Jury Street metro station area.
Yeah, that one seemed to be the key. The initial translation attempts, after all that painstaking work, they finally settled on this sequence, just repeating over and over. CQ, CQ, CQDE, OT, OT, OTK.
Okay, now this is where we need you, the expert who actually gets ham radio jargon.
Yeah.
Because to me, to most people, that just looks like alphabet soup and maybe the number 0. What is that actually communicating?
Right, it's super formalized. It's this military-style communication protocol that definitely predates the bombs. So let's break down that structure, because the community eventually realized this format was the key to basically all the Morse signals.
Okay.
First up, you got CQ. That's pretty much the universal general call in amateur radio. It just means calling anyone or seeking all stations. It's like shouting into the void, hoping someone hears.
An open invitation.
Precisely. Then you have DE. That's short for the French word de, which basically means this is or from. Simple enough.
Gotcha.
Now, OT is the station's call sign. And there was this one theory early on in the community that OT stood for old timer.
Old timer.
Yeah, which just happens to match the signal's phonetic name, Oscar Tango. It gives it this really tragic kind of human element, doesn't it?
Wait, I think I remember reading about that, but didn't some people argue OT stood for something more? Military, like overhead transmitter or something? Trying to tie it to the enclave, maybe?
Yeah, there were definitely those theories floating around. People wanted it to be this big strategic thing, maybe an enclave unit or some specific military relay.
So why does that stick?
Well, mostly because it lacked the right context when they finally found the source down in the hidden bunkers. The enclave signals, when you hear them, they tend to be these clean, pre-recorded messages, right?
Very official sounding.
These radio tower signals, they sound rougher, older. It really implies more of a lone operator situation. Plus, honestly, in Fallout, the most compelling explanation usually leans towards the simplest, most tragic human story. Old timer just felt right for some poor soul making a last desperate call. It stuck.
Okay, so we've got calling anyone, this is old timer.
Right.
And then finally, that single letter K.
Right, the K. That's the invitation to transmit. It means please transmit or just over. It's basically demanding a response.
So, okay. You spend hours decoding this complex signal. You're expecting coordinates to some secret vault crammed with power armor.
Yeah,
right?
the big payout.
And what you actually get is this perpetual heartbreaking loop. Calling anyone, calling anyone, calling anyone. This is old timer, old timer, old timer, please transmit. It's just endlessly asking for a response that, 200 years after the Great War can absolutely never come.
It's brilliant, though. It's functional game mechanics layered perfectly over this deep, silent tragedy. And the brain rot factor you mentioned. It's intense because you get this huge technical victory. I decoded a secret message.
Right.
Only for the message itself to be the most depressing, lonely thing imaginable.
Yeah.
That, for me, is peak Fallout design. Just chef's kiss.
But the community, they didn't just stop there, did they? They realized Oscar Tango was the general call, but other signals showed an even darker pattern. They found most of the Morse signals followed this very standard format. Call sign, call sign, call sign, decode, code, code K. And that mysterious second code, the 3 letters after the D, often translated to 2 very specific letters.
Yes, and this is where the whole interpretation of the apocalypse kind of shifts from just simple distress to something, well, more formal and unsettling. Many of those repeating 3-letter codes, they translated to CL.
CL. And CL means what exactly in radio speak?
In radio parlance, CL stands for clear. It basically means I am going off the air, closing down transmission.
Oh, damn. Okay, that's exponentially darker. So it's not just a desperate, hopeful call anymore. It's potentially a recording of someone trying to formally log off the airwaves right before they died or had to abandon their post.
That's the chilling part.
It's like the final coherent transmission of a civilization just blinking out.
Precisely. If you think of CQ as the desperate plea for help, CL is like resignation. It's the signal operator, maintaining protocol, maintaining formality, even in the face of total annihilation. They didn't just smash the radio and run screaming. They performed the last coherent act of communication. They knew how a formal goodbye to the airwaves. It really suggests these operators were likely professionals,
Yeah.
Military, maybe government personnel, who just upheld their duty right to the bitter, bitter end.
And finding the skeleton next to the radio later just seals that deal.
It confirms that whole tragic context, yeah.
I gotta pause here and just think about that. When you first really dove into this, realizing that a simple CQ or CL, represents 2 centuries of absolute silence.
Mm-hmm.
Did that change how you look at environmental storytelling in other games? Like fundamentally?
Oh, absolutely. Totally. Because most games, they use text logs, right?
Right.
Or maybe audio recordings you find, standard exposition dumps.
Yeah, the usual tropes.
This used sound mechanically. The developers forced you, the player, to actively engage with the environment, not just passively read a terminal screen. It turns the world into the silent graveyard of communication, and they made the player metaphorically dig the graves by decoding it. It's powerful stuff.
And we really have to emphasize the sheer density of this hidden content. This isn't just one cool little Easter egg tucked away somewhere.
No way.
According to the original guides, the later wikis that compiled everything, there are 9 confirmed radio tower signals, the SOS-type signals just in the base game alone, that lead to these triangulated hidden locations.
9 distinct spots.
That is 9 separate micro-stories the developers hid behind a complex code and an optional gameplay mechanic most people probably ignored. That's a ridiculous amount of optional reward-based exploration built in there.
It really is. And it encourages that deep kind of map scrubbing exploration that, let's be honest, a lot of modern games kind of skip in favor of just giving you a quest marker, right?
Well, totally.
It makes the wasteland feel genuinely haunted, genuinely layered.
Okay, so we've established the message, right?
Yeah.
The tragic final words, the formal sign-offs of the old-timer, whoever. But the genius of the design, like you said, is that this tragedy isn't just audio lore, it's actually a navigational puzzle. So let's talk about the mechanic itself, the part that turns your Pip-Boy into this sort of apocalyptic metal detector.
Yeah, this is the core gameplay loop tied directly to activating those towers. Once you flip that power switch, the signal pops up in your Pip-Boy's radio list. But unlike, say, Galaxy News Radio or Enclave Radio, which just play,
Right, those are constant.
these signals, they have strength bars that fluctuate like crazy. You get this pulsing red static overlay on the signal name.
And that's your clue. You actually have to tune your radio to that specific signal. Let's say it's signal Kilo Bravo, and then as you walk around, maybe near the base of the tower's hill or just in the immediate area,
Yeah, you wander around.
the static noise gets louder, right? And the signal strength meter on your Pip-Boy actually increases. It's essentially using the radio signal itself as a proximity radar,
Yeah,
a game of hot and cold.
exactly. And this mechanic is absolutely crucial because the destinations, the places these signals lead you, are almost universally unmarked on the main world map.
You won't see them from a distance.
Nope. Someone back in the day noted that the Pip-Boy's local map, you know, the one that just shows your immediate tiny area and any discovered icons, that becomes your primary tool here. It'll pinpoint a nearby, very concealed entrance, usually just a tiny, often metallic-looking square on the local map, representing a door or a hatch that you would absolutely walk right past otherwise.
Yeah, you're definitely not looking for some giant vault-tech vault door here. You're looking for something labeled like sealed cistern or drainage chamber, maybe just a manhole cover.
Super subtle stuff.
Something hidden, often kind of partially submerged in irradiated water or camouflaged by rubble and junk. That's the payoff for tracking all that beeping noise.
And then once you find it and get inside these hidden bunkers, the whole atmosphere shifts again, right? It goes from puzzle solving outside to something much more melancholy inside.
Yeah.
Because the first thing you usually find is the confirmation, the closure for the whole mystery you just solved. The source of the broadcast is almost always a deactivated or maybe broken ham radio set,
Sitting right there.
right next to the skeletal remains of the radio operator. The skeleton confirms the distress call's tragic end. It closes the loop.
And the ultimate satisfaction maybe for the player, after all that effort tracking the signal, is that little interaction prompt. You can actually walk up to the ham radio and just shut the broadcast off entirely. And that specific mournful signal just vanishes from your Pip-Boy list forever. It's like this small act of granting peace, maybe, in this totally desolate world. A tiny bit of closure.
It is satisfying, but let's be real for a second. Exploration fatigue is definitely a thing, right?
Yeah.
You're calling it a masterclass. But wasn't this system also kind of criticized back at launch for making the player track unmarked locations using just sound strength? Didn't that feel tedious to some players who just wanted the damn map marker?
Absolutely, yeah. It wasn't universally loved, especially by players who prefer clear objective markers and just want to get to the point. No doubt about that.
So what made it work then?
I think what made this system ultimately successful, and maybe different from just annoying fetch quests in other games, was the guaranteed, usually high-quality reward. It wasn't just finding another random note or some ambient lore text. It was often functional character progress.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. The reward matters.
We mentioned the standard loot. You'll find ammo, maybe some stim packs, purified water, that kind of stuff. But let's dive into the specifics, because the reward often correlates directly to permanent character improvement,
Yeah.
which is huge in an RPG.
Okay, let's take the WKML broadcast station example. You activate that tower, you tune into the Kilo Bravo signal, you follow the beeps,
Right.
and it leads you to a sealed cistern entrance nearby. Inside, yeah, you get your standard survival supplies, but you also find schematics, those recipes for crafting powerful custom weapons.
Which are super valuable.
And crucially, the explosives bobblehead is in that specific location.
Boom.
Yeah.
That's a permanent plus 10-point skill increase to your explosive skill, hidden behind a literal game of Morse code hide and seek. That's the type of payoff that makes the potentially tedious tracking feel worth the effort for a lot of players. It's a permanent stat boost, not just, 50 bottle caps or something temporary.
And the lore bits contained in these mini dungeons, these little bunkers, they're worth spending time on too, I think. Each of the 9 locations tells its own unique micro story about how different people or groups met their end when the bombs fell.
Right, they're not all the same skeleton by a radio scene.
Definitely not. Take the sealed cistern near Relay Tower KLB2, that location. It confirms this little pocket of pre-war Sino-American conflict happening right at the moment of impact. You don't just find a lone American skeleton in there.
Oh,
You find multiple Chinese soldiers' bodies and their gear inside this tiny American shelter.
Whoa, okay, that's fascinating. What do the forums, the old lore discussions, say about that scene? What's the interpretation?
Well, the general consensus, piecing it together, is that these Chinese commandos, maybe survivors from the initial bombings nearby, were either desperately trying to breach the American shelter to survive themselves,
Makes sense.
or maybe they were trying to salvage some pre-war tech from inside, right as the American operator sealed the door. And what you find are the skeletal remains, like 3 of them, still kind of clutching their rusted Type 93 Chinese assault rifles, maybe remnants of their stealth suits. It confirms this sudden, violent confrontation happened right as the door sealed, or maybe just moments after. It's this insane snapshot of a last-second, desperate micro-war.
Man, that just dramatically elevates the atmosphere, doesn't it? Because suddenly the threat isn't just random ghouls or raiders out there, it's the literal ghosts of 2 warring superpowers dying simultaneously inside a tiny ventilation shaft bunker.
It's heavy stuff. And then you have the other end of the spectrum, the paranoid survivalist locations.
Ah yes, the preppers.
Totally. There's one really famous booby trap site, the one linked to Signal Echo Foxtrot. Players back then reported needing extremely high perception skill or a ton of points in explosives just to navigate the interior without getting blown up.
Seriously rigged.
Oh yeah. We're talking tripwires connected to rigged shotguns aimed right at the entrance door, landmines scattered under the waterline in flooded sections, even grenade clusters just dangling from wires in the ceiling. This place wasn't built for community shelter. It was built to keep everyone the hell out.
Which speaks volumes, right?
Absolutely. It speaks directly to that intense, almost isolationist paranoia that was rampant in the pre-war American population in the Fallout universe, where people feared their own neighbors just as much, maybe more, than the actual threat of nuclear war with China itself.
That level of detail, connecting the trap style to the pre-war psyche, that's what makes the Capital Wasteland feel so real, so grounded despite the sci-fi. These shelters, they reflect the dark side of that pre-war society. People building and maintaining hidden bunkers with such extreme anti-personnel defenses that they essentially became these deadly, self-inflicted traps.
And even the enemies you find sometimes in these specific locations are lore-specific, tying back to the audio. Remember we mentioned ghouls guarding one site?
Yeah, the growling signal.
Right. The developers used the faint radio static, the growls on that signal, as an audio hint. And sure enough, the in-game enemies found right there matched the audio anomaly. So players might have had to approach that area relying on hearing those low-health, raspy ghoul breathing noises to identify the enemy before they even saw them in the dark tunnels. It's like this holistic little horror system working together. Sound, environment, enemy placement.
Okay, so as intellectually satisfying and frankly tragic as decoding those Morse code loops is, not every tower is just sending out dots and dashes, right?
Nope, there's more.
Some of these signals kind of bypass the technical puzzle entirely and just go straight for the emotional jugular. They are genuinely disturbing, some of them. And they connect directly to the deepest wells of internet creepypasta and, yeah, that glorious brain rot.
Let's talk about the absolute most harrowing signal, the one that always comes up. That's radio signal Oscar Zulu. You activate it at Relay Tower KXB 811. This is the one that completely breaks the technical Morse code format and introduces a human voice.
Oh man, this one is just an auditory gut punch. It emits this frantic spoken message, clear as day,
Yeah.
apparently from a man named Bob Anderstein.
Yeah, you hear his voice.
And he says he's holed up with his wife and his young son in a nearby drainage tunnel, and he's desperately asking for immediate help before their air runs out or something.
It's the immediacy, the clarity of that message that just sets it so far apart from the beaks. It doesn't sound like an ancient recording. It sounds...
Well, it sounds almost live, or at least a very recent short loop playing over and over. It's pure desperation.
chilling.
And just like the Morse signals, the game mechanic forces you to follow the rising signal strength to triangulate the source, which in this case leads you to this seemingly innocuous drainage tunnel entrance located just southeast of the relay tower itself.
And when players finally find that drainage chamber, the conclusion is just absolutely heartbreaking, isn't it? According to all the original forum posts, the wikis that catalog this event, players only find the bodies of the mother and the father inside, confirming Bob Anderstein's fate. Yeah. But here's the detail that really haunts people. The most disturbing part. There is absolutely no mention, no body, no sign anywhere of the young son that Bob mentioned so frantically in his desperate message.
Just gone.
Vanished. Was the son evacuated somehow? Did he run off in the chaos? Did he meet some other, maybe even worse fate out in the wasteland? The developers just leave that thread completely hanging, permanently unresolved. It's brutal.
It's like this perfect, miniature, tragic short story that plays out entirely through ambient audio and player exploration.
Yeah.
It serves absolutely no quest purpose, gives you no reward, but it sticks with you forever. Because it's the difference between finding some cold, static terminal entry about a tragedy and actually hearing a desperate man's final, terrified words echoing out of a broken radio 2 centuries too late.
Yeah.
That's just pure emotional manipulation through sound design. It's incredibly effective.
It is, and it's effective partly because the player is forced to confront the failure of their own arrival time.
Yeah.
You found the signal, you followed it, but guess what? You were 200 years too late to help. That hits hard.
Wow. Okay, so beyond that sheer tragedy, there are other non-Morse signals too, right? Ones the community cited that maybe function more as like environmental warnings.
Exactly. Take radio mast Yankee Bravo, which is southwest of Canterbury Commons. Once you activate that one, the signal it emits is just described as murmurings and growls,
Creepy.
which, as we kind of touched on earlier with the gold bunker, functions beautifully as a subtle hint. If you follow the triangulation for that signal, the area surrounding the source is known to be heavily inhabited by feral ghouls.
Ah, so the signal is the warning.
Pretty much. The signal itself is acting as this passive hazard warning. The developers are basically saying through the sound, hey, don't approach this area unless you are fully prepared for some nasty close quarters combat with whatever is making that unnerving, raspy audio. It's smart design.
And then there's a really weird one, the ephemeral Chinese signal. This one's different, right? Users report just randomly encountering a signal that repeats a short, looping phrase in Mandarin Chinese.
Yeah, this one's super transient.
It usually only lasts for a few seconds, people say, and it's often heard when you're near the body of a dead Chinese soldier or maybe one of those Chinese remnant commandos. And then, poof, the signal just vanishes entirely.
This one gets categorized as like the ultimate momentary immersion piece. It's apparently never tied to a permanent location or specific loot cache. Its entire purpose seems to be to just momentarily break the atmosphere of purely American decay and remind you, the player, that the Great War was, in fact, global.
A little reminder of the other side.
Exactly. It gives this impression that these stray military broadcasts, maybe they're automated distress calls, maybe just weird atmospheric interference patterns after 200 years, are just blinking in and out of existence all over the wasteland like little electronic ghosts of a forgotten war.
Okay, now let's get into the real deep-cut conspiracy shit. The lore that wasn't built by Bethesda, but by the player's own glorious paranoia and brain rot.
Ah, my favorite part.
The community, maybe inevitably, drew this explicit link between these silent, endlessly repeating signals in the game and a real-world, decades-long radio phenomenon, number stations.
Yes. This connection is absolutely crucial for understanding the overall atmospheric impact these towers had on players back then. Number stations, as defined by, intelligence analysts and documented on sites like Wikipedia, they are real shortwave radio broadcasts.
Still happening today, some of them.
Right. They're characterized by these weird, often artificially generated voices reciting long streams of numbers or letters, or sometimes even Morse code, just like in the game. And they are widely assumed, though very rarely officially confirmed, to be transmitting covert messages, usually using one-time pads, to spies operating undercover, often overseas.
Like in the old spy movies.
Exactly. Think of the really famous one, the Lincolnshire Poacher broadcast, with its distinct little musical chime intro before the numbers started. It's pure Cold War spookiness.
And it's just a perfect fit for the Fallout universe, isn't it? Which is entirely built on that paranoid Cold War aesthetic, the mid-century espionage fears. These military call signs in the game, these cryptic repeating messages, they feel exactly like the kind of cryptic transmission spies would have been listening for back then. Even if, in the game's reality, the signals are ultimately just these perpetual distress loops from dead people.
The vibe is identical. In this real-world espionage context, it absolutely fueled the ultimate layer of player-generated urban legend and creepypasta. The lore hunters, the real dedicated ones, they couldn't just accept the signal as just a distress call. It had to be something deeper, something more hidden.
It's the ultimate meta lore, the players adding layers on top of the developer's layer.
Exactly. We saw the rise of this very specific creepypasta that was built entirely around these Fallout 3 radio towers. It was this idea that the main Galaxy News radio signal, Three Dogs Station, could somehow be manipulated. Well, the theory went, if you listen to it at a specific in-game time, or maybe in a specific location near a tower, or maybe if you did some weird sequence of actions, the music station itself would turn into a numbers station.
No way.
Oh, yeah. And this fictional numbers station, hidden within GNR, would allegedly start broadcasting sequences that predicted real-life future dates and events. Sometimes, the stories claimed, with frightening accuracy.
That is just peak brain rot saturation right there.
The game was so damn successful at creating this pervasive atmosphere of paranoia and hidden secrets that the players started inventing fictional hidden secrets about the existing secrets.
It's amazing, isn't it? It just proves how effectively these simple beeps and static noises manage to enhance the world's sense of profound, ongoing mystery. It tapped into something real. It really moved beyond just simple sound design at that point.
Yeah.
It became this successful implementation of player-driven meta-narrative. The signals didn't just tell a story Bethesda wrote. They convinced the player base that there was an even deeper story out there, one only they could truly decode if they just listened hard enough. Hashtag tag outro. Okay, so if we kind of step back now and look at the whole system, all 9 of these separate locations, the complex decoding sometimes required, this mixture of deep tragedy and genuinely high-value loot. These radio towers, they really serve 2 main functions in the game, don't they?
Yeah, I think you can boil it down to 2 key things.
Yeah.
Mechanically, first off, they function as this brilliant hidden exploratory system. It's basically a giant optional game of hot and cold using your radio.
Right.
That rewards the most dedicated, curious explorers with things they actually want. High-value schematics, those permanent bobblehead skill increases, cool hidden shelters full of supplies. It provides this unique navigational challenge that really respects the player's intelligence, I think. Doesn't just hand it to you.
And then, atmospherically, they're just a phenomenal device, aren't they?
Yeah.
They inject these miniature, really subtle, often deeply tragic little stories into the world. You've got the old-timer calling out forever into the void. You've got the old-timer calling out forever into the void. You've got Bob Anderstein's final desperate plea for his family, the silent graves of Chinese commandos fighting Americans at the literal end of the world. It gives the player this sense of an ongoing silent apocalypse that's happening just beneath the surface of whatever main quests you're doing. They give the Wasteland a real feeling of density and history, stuff that happened long before you got there.
Absolutely. It wasn't just, wasted development time making pointless background noise. It was clearly an intentional, deep design choice, specifically made to reward exploration and player curiosity. And that's what elevated the Capital Wasteland from just being a static map with quest markers to feeling like a genuine, haunted, and fundamentally mysterious place to explore.
Totally agree. Okay, so finally, let's leave you, the listener, with a question. Something to mull over, inspired by those perpetual Morse code signals, the ones constantly broadcasting. Calling anyone, please transmit. CQOQK.
Yeah.
Think about the major factions still operating in Fallout 3's time. You've got the scientifically powerful Brotherhood of Steel, You've got the highly organized, technologically advanced enclave. Hell, even some of the more tech-savvy raider gangs might have the gear.
They definitely have the listening posts, or could rig something up. They have the equipment. They certainly have the lore knowledge within their ranks, especially the Brotherhood and Enclave, about pre-war communication.
So what if? 200 years on, one of those major factions had actually maintained not just the capability, but the motivation to try and respond to one of those ancient 16-year-old distress calls they picked up.
Like actually transmitting back.
Yeah. What if a response, even just a single coded silent ping sent back into the wasteland static, had finally reached the frequency of one of those looping signals? How would that one tiny, silent connection across centuries have changed the course of the Capital Wasteland?
Wow, that's a thought.
Would it have somehow saved Bob Anderstein's son? Would knowing about one of those hidden bunkers have tipped the strategic scale for the Brotherhood against the Enclave? Or vice versa? What could have happened?
That's a hell of a rabbit hole.
Go mull on that one. And thank you, as always, for joining us for the deep dive. We'll catch you in Static next time.